Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second game we have for our Never Nag Again challenges here in the Unstoppable Service Dog Workshop. And I'm super excited to show you guys what the journey that Reaver has been on personally and where we started with our training to get that really nice, beautiful heel that you saw earlier in today's video this afternoon. So if you guys are here for learning how to stop that pulling, get excited because I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey and how this all began. Okay, so I've got some videos I want to show you guys. And let me shrink myself down a little bit here. There we go. All right, so here we are with one of for a second or third session that we started to do on, I think this might have been our second, on not to leash pull around distractions, okay? So the first thing you want to have, hold up, here, get your workbook out. Go to the back of your workbook. And this is going to be under your additional resources tab. And you want to go under day 3, oppositional reflex. Okay, this is the page we are looking at. And it tells you what you need to get started and set up. So here you're going to need a calm, low distraction environment, right? No drill bits happening no drilling happening in the background, no children running around, no pets running around, a nice, calm, low distraction environment, and ideally a calm dog as well. This is easiest to start with puppies because they like to sleep all the time. So it can be very easy to pick and choose when to do this training session. You would have food reinforcers for Reaver here. Of course, with puppies, you can just use their kibble. They are very food motivated for that. And you want a leash attached to a service dog collar. Now, why do I make this distinction, a service dog collar, rather than your dog's standard normal collar? Because as a service dog, they need to have an on switch and an off switch. And this is early stages of teaching to have that on switch of, hey, this is when we need to behave in this specific way, versus when all that stuff is off, you may now behave in this specific way, right? Be a normal dog rather than having to be on and be on your service dog behavior, okay? So this is the beginning stages of it. I like to use a martingale collar, and I like it when it closes at the end, so it just acts as a standard flat collar. Unless your dog, of course, has a smaller head, then you might need to keep it tighter just so that it's like escape proof. But the reason why I like to use that is because when the dog is doing everything correctly, they feel that difference around their neck. When they're in a heel position correctly, when they're ignoring distractions, when they're staying by your side, when they're not pulling, it feels like they're naked. Okay, so I use a very large, wide, you've seen it, 2-inch thick martingale, that's probably what for, 2-inch thick martingale collar that's very loose on my dog. And that's the reason why I use it like that, because when he's doing everything right, he shouldn't feel anything. Okay, so get those items, okay? And does it say leash? Yes, leash attached to service dog collar. Okay, so when you're setting this up, right? My puppy's playing with the bottle here. I'm going forward a little bit. So this is the setup right there. That's the setup you want to start off with. Okay, leash is on the ground. You are standing on it with the balls of your feet, right? And both feet are standing on the leash. This is important. Why is this important? Because if we get lazy and put one foot on the leash, we switch weight without realizing it. And our dog can easily either get out from under our feet or pull on that tension, and it's not a hard stop. right? If they pull to the end of something, it should be a hard stop, right? Kara says, are service dog capes that have D-rings for the leash? Capes don't have any attachment on them. Capes are just capes. Capes aren't a harness. I know there are harnesses that people also use for service dog stuff. Oh, okay, that's a good question. So are capes that have a D-ring for a leash just as good? So then it's a harness, that it's not a collar. Now, the reason why I use a collar, right, is because my dog uses a harness for his everyday dog stuff. And it's easier for him to discriminate between being on for service dog work, wearing his collar and vest, rather than just switching to different harnesses, right? It's going to depend on your dog. All of my clients use it this way, and I have found good results with that. But just make sure that whatever cue you're using, discriminative stimulus you're using for your dog is very, very clear and that they understand it, okay? So make sure both feet are on the leash. And the amount of leash that you should give your dog from your foot to that collar is only enough to sit down and stand. You don't want it to be longer because then they start to wander, then they start to get bored, right? Then they're not by your heel position. So only enough for them to sit down and stand. Very important concept there. And the typical length of that leash, depending on the size of your dog, is going to vary. If you're doing like something like a Labrador or a medium-sized dog around 50 pounds, 2 feet of leash length for a 50-pound dog is appropriate. Here, Reaver as a puppy, this is hardly a foot long. Okay, so that's going to vary by the size of your dog. Just enough to sit, stand, and down. Not enough to wander. Okay, so during this training that I'm doing here, I'm going to be using distractions. And, excuse me. And the type of distractions I'm using is going to be this water bottle that he was playing with earlier, and this purple carabiner that you're seeing way down here, which I will also be throwing as a way to teach him to stop pulling. So what are we going to do? I'm going to move forward a little bit, right? Now, hold up. I'm looking for the spot where we were. Here we go. Okay. So what you're going to want to be doing, and this is this is a little messy here on this video, but it's a good length on the leash, and you want to take that distraction, that water bottle, throw it on the ground, far enough away out of reach of the dog. Okay. When you throw it far enough away out of reach for the dog could do one of a few things. One, the dog could immediately stand up and try to go investigate it, in which case they're on a leash. They can't do that because you're throwing it out of reach. So when they hit the end of that leash, they could hit that end of the leash, right? That's the first response they could do. Two, the second response, they could just sit there for a second looking at the object. The third response they could do is to look up at you. Now, that doesn't tend to happen without training, right? And we're going to teach our dogs to do that when an item drops or when a distraction comes by, it is now becoming a cue to focus on you. And it all starts with learning how not to pull towards objects and distractions. So as soon as I put this bottle down, I believe he makes a choice to go investigate. So let's see what happens. Drop it. I think it came back a little bit, a little too close, but very good. Okay, so what happened there? Let's break this down. Threw the bottle, came a little too close. He was able to touch it with his nose. You don't want your dog to do that, but mistakes do happen, right? Especially when items bounce around. So what I was looking for is when he reached there and hit the end of his leash to go investigate, I was actually marking and reinforcing him for removing the pressure off of the leash by himself. That's why it's really important to have a good, steady standing on your leash, okay? So let's watch that one more time. Now, as you're practicing this game, right, there's 3 behaviors that you want to be reinforcing at this time, marking and reinforcing for. 1, if they do go towards the object, mark and reinforce for when they remove pressure off the leash by themselves. 2, if you drop the object, they could just sit there for a while. When they sit there for a while without moving forward towards the object, mark and reinforce that. Okay, mark and reinforce when that happens. And 3, as you play this game for a period of time, they're going to start to realize you have the food. And what's going to start to happen naturally when you're marking and reinforcing for them staying still, when you drop an item, they're going to start saying, oh, wait a minute, mom just has the treats. And they're going to start to look up at you naturally by themselves. You don't have to prompt. You don't have to make a kissy noise. You don't have to say focus, right? Mark and reinforce that as well. Okay, all 3 of these behaviors you are marking in the same session as they happen naturally. Okay, so let's rewatch this again one more time. What does Reaver do just before he starts to pull towards the bottle? Drops, he sits there for a good long time. Right? So be careful. Don't make this mistake where you're waiting for your dog to fail and hit the end of the leash. Right? If your dog sits there, like what Reaver was doing, right there, make sure to mark and reinforce that. Okay? So let's continue. Let's see where this lesson goes. He removes pressure. He also looks at me. I mark and reinforce. Grabs that toy, readjust your leash, mark and reinforce. Now that was really good. This is a benefit of the really smart dogs out there. They can catch on so quick regardless of your lack of awareness of training, right? So it's really important though, in order for our dogs to learn even faster, to mark and reinforce those moments when they don't move towards that object. And of course, now he's starting to voluntarily offer me eye contact, which I was marking for as well. Oh, and you can start, once they start doing this, you can start reinforcing duration eye contact as well. God, he's so cute. Okay, so we're going to try another one. Drops, mark and reinforce right there. But look at that. Look what he just did. Did you see that paw? Stares, thinks about going over, doesn't, looks up at me. So puppies learn so fast. And they're very, very, very forgivable for the mistakes that we make as trainers. All right. So I use a new object. Should have marked and reinforced right there because, oh, look at that. He's self-corrected. He's like, I know I'm not supposed to, or I can't get over there. So I'm just going to stay here and get my reinforcement. Again, I'm not asking him to leave it. I'm not asking him to give me eye contact. I am marking and reinforcing the moments he chooses to do good. Okay? And what you're going to want to do with this game is if your dog is on a walk and likes to smell everything, if your dog likes to pull towards other dogs, if your dog likes to pull towards anything, start with this game. Start inside the house, nice and easy, on their service dog equipment, right? And start using everything. Use bottles, use freaking pens, use paper, crinkly paper. That can be a really difficult one. But what you're going to want to do is ideally have a helper with you at first. Somebody who can control all of these things, right? While you can focus on the dog. You can do this by yourself, absolutely. But like you saw earlier on, sometimes the items can bounce back at you, right? So be careful about that. But start picking up and finding everything in your house. Work on that, right? And reinforce the 3 behaviors. If they do pull, reinforce for removing the leash pressure themselves, because that teaches them that pulling isn't going to get them anywhere. Also reinforce for not moving towards that object, just staying there when the distraction is presented. And then, of course, reinforce that naturally occurring eye contact, because they're expecting a reinforcer for just sitting there. Does this interfere with teaching a retrieve? So retrieval training, this is done in puppy stages. This is before you do any kind of task work, right? Your dog should know this before you start doing task work. So I don't know how you're teaching your retrieve. That's a great question. It's probably going to depend on a lot of different factors specifically for you, right? But I don't teach my puppies to retrieve this early, but again, like this is usually done way, way before you do any kind of task training, okay? And if your dog is still working on basic obedience out in service, out and about, you probably should be doing task training anyway. You need to have your dog to make sure that all their obedience is reliable out in public before relying on them for tasks, okay? So if you're still working on public stuff, keep working on basic obedience. Don't jump into task training just yet. All right. Any questions? Oh, him eating his kibble. So slow. What a good man. What a good man. So, yeah, this is where I would start. And again, as we're doing this, tomorrow, we're going to do more about generalizing this behavior. The day after, we're going to go more into autofocus, which builds from this game. Okay? It builds from this game. So make sure that you practice this before you even get into autofocus. He has manners, right? It's also teaching impulse control at the same time. And then when I'm done, we detach and we go. And at this time, he was fitting into a kitten collar at this time. So he wasn't big enough to be in any kind of service dog collar. I did have one that I wanted to use, but he was way too small for it. So yeah, he is wearing his little kitten collar right now in this video. Okay, so let me see, next video. Oh, collar cues. Yes. Okay. Collar cues are very complementary to the not pulling games. All right. So this one, Reaver's a little bit older. He is now in his service dog collar, his very loose martingale collar. And what collar cues is when instead of the puppy adding pressure, right? In the previous game, if the puppy went to the end of the leash, he learned that, oh, when I feel this tension, I need to remove that pressure. So that paves the way for collar cues, because when you feel tension, you need to start relieving that pressure, right? Oh, I feel tension. What should I do? Oh, I go and follow the direction of that pressure. Okay, so this next game is going to start looking like this. Okay, you choose one direction you want your dog to go in. For us, we were choosing left, right? So I choose one direction. I add tension. Nice. When he follows that pressure, mark and reinforce. Okay, you want to see that one more time? We'll watch that one more time. We're going left. I add the pressure. I wait. I don't keep adding pressure. I just add that pressure and I wait. When he knows what's to do, I mark and I reinforce. Okay. Add that pressure. Nice. He follows. I mark and I reinforce. All right. So that's what collar cues looks like. Again, start in one direction at a time. Left, 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 left. Okay. You got dog has left. Now go right, 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 right. Okay. Eventually, you can also go forward and backward. And eventually, you can just guide your dog around into any direction, and they will follow you with the very lightest touch. Okay? It's not always, as you do this, the amount of pressure you're going to have to add is lighter and lighter. I'm going to have to update. I'm going to have to record some more videos just to show you guys where Reaver is at, because currently his collar doesn't even have to get tight. He feels the direction that the collar is moving to. It doesn't even have to tighten, and he just starts to follow. Like, that is how ridiculously light and how ridiculously well he knows these collar cues. Okay? And you're never going to have a dog that pulls again when you really have this concept down. All right? All right. I think we have one more video. He's so cute. I can't stand him. So to get started with collar cues, I like to use a chair. Okay? Because when you use a chair, sometimes dogs, if you're standing when you're starting collar cues, sometimes dogs cue on the movement of your feet. And when you move around and you're standing, dogs might just learn to look at where your feet are and they'll follow you that way. Well, we don't want dogs following our feet. We want our dogs either following the cue of where our hand is moving and where that pressure is leading them to. Okay, so let me show you how we get started with our collar cues on a chair. Oh, so cute. So he's a little bit older now than you saw in the first video. He's got a new collar. We've got our training collar up here. Okay, let's be forward. Comes on in. I mark and I reinforce. And you can see he's actually starting to, there we go, follow my hand a little bit. So I make the leash pretty short. I want my hand pretty close to the leash. All right, I want my hand pretty darn close. I add pressure. Dog should follow. Now notice some things here. My dog's in a sit position. You see how his default's sitting onto me? And you see when I add this pressure in this very second, he does a little dance and he's like, "Argh." You see that? Did you see that? Right? He did recover pretty well and he came back to me. Now, you don't want your dog in a down or a sit when you're practicing this. I remember one of the biggest grievances I had when doing this with Reaver is that he had such an automatic sit. It was hard to get him into a standing position. And a standing position is what you want with this game because it's easier to move a dog around and there's less opposition of, oh, I'm sitting, I don't want to come back up, right? Eventually, as you practice, you can practice from sit and down positions. But right now, when you're first starting out, you really have to practice from a standing position. And I didn't teach him stand for a long time until I ran into this issue. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to have to teach him stand because I didn't teach him that yet. Right? So if your dog does default to a down or a sit, you are going to have to make sure that it's easy for them by having them in a stand position. Okay? So add pressure. Again, he was sitting and it wasn't quite easy and flowy for him. He's like, and then he was trying to get into a down. And I'm trying to tell him, stand up, buddy. So let's move forward a little bit, see where we're going here. Oh, look at this. As we continue, there we go. There's some standing. Here's some stands. All right. Let's see here. Now, as we're practicing, you're noticing coming up from a sit is getting much easier for him. Not as much hesitation, not as much pressure being added, and it's getting lighter and lighter for him and easier for him to move. Okay? Got back in a sit. Look how quick he comes up this time, right? Very, very quick. And he starts moving around. Really, really easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. Now, as you're going, look at how much more. So we started with our lefts and then we started adding on to our rights. And now we're putting it together back and forth, left and right, left and right, left and right. And this is the flow. This is the ease that you want to be seeing out of your dog. Now you can see he's pretty much following my hand. He's following my hand more or less. to get into, yeah, we were trying from a down there. He actually came up. Still not as quick as from a sit because he was in a down, brand new. Marking and reinforcing for that. And asking for a come up from a down. Okay, so what, at the beginning of the session, you saw Reaver, hello, really kind of struggling coming up from that sit position, right? And I'm like, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. He's like, what the heck do you want? And then we're going back and forth quite a bit. And then we start to quickly graduate up from a down position. Okay, but again, you want to, if so enthusiastic, but again, you want to start from a standing position until they've got that in flow, left one direction only, then two directions, and then from a sit and a down. Okay. All right, where do we end that? Oh, that's pretty much it. Oh, look at those spots. You could see his spots so much better when his hair was short. Now he's got this long mane of a man hair. Like it's just man hair. He's so cute. He's so freaking cute. Oh, just can't. I just can't. All right, I think that's all the videos. 1, 2, 3. Oh, no, wait, we have another one. Actually, this one's pretty good. All right, so calm out the door and collar cues. This next video expands on the idea of not pulling. Okay, but it also teaches your dog not to rush out the front door. All right, now what do I mean by this? Well, rather than using our plastic bottle or our purple carabiner as distractions as we were doing in the first video, we are now using the door as a distraction. We are doing the same thing. We're getting our collar on. We are stepping on the leash. But this time, we're going to start reaching for the door. Well, we're going to review first, right? Always review with your dog so they know what game you're playing. But then you're going to start reaching for the door. Unlock it. If your dog, there we go. If your dog tries to move forward, wait for them to relieve that pressure. When they do, mark and reinforce. And then wait for them to stay still, mark and reinforce for not moving forward. Look at how fast this progression is. Look at how fast this progression is. Now also notice how I'm marking at the second I add in that distraction. So I open the door, same time, go, nice, nice, right? So let's watch that again. Look at that timing. I don't want to give him a chance to make a mistake to reach the end of his leash. I want to mark him for being good in the moment before he can think about it. If it happens, it happens, and I'll reinforce for when he comes back. But I don't want to make a habit out of it. I don't want to make a habit of him going to the end of his leash and coming back. I want to reinforce him for staying still and for giving me eye contact. Look at those ears, barely staying up by the wind coming in the front door. Too cute. Now, the beauty of this is that you will, depending where you're doing this at, right, at thresholds, you will have naturally occurring distractions outside. And he thinks we're going right on out because he hasn't played this game for very long, where normally we would just rush outside and go potty. And he was like, oh, let me go potty, right? Let's go back again. Hits the end of that leash, even though we've done our collar cues, he hits the end of that leash. It's not super hard, right? But it's hey, aren't we going? And his mind was elsewhere, right? His mind was, let's go outside. But what do? I don't give into that pressure. I wait. I keep my hands steady and I keep it fixed, because if I gave into that pressure, you are undoing all of the hard work you just put in for those collar cues and for the ground tether games. Okay. So he removes that pressure. The second he removes that pressure, I mark and I reinforce. There we go. Get back to stepping on my leash, both feet. He's looking at me, mark and reinforce. Again, you can mark and reinforce that duration eye contact as well. So build up to 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10. You got it. All right, I wonder if we get into any distractions walking by. Let's see. Oh, look, and he does his default settle. This is why we put all of that effort into their settle. For my dogs, all of their food is on me for all of the day. These are working dogs. They should be working for their food, right? So he starts to offer what he knows and what has been reinforced the most in the past, which is that settle. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine with that. Let's do a settle instead. Well, what do we start working on next? It looks like some collar cues. There we go. So we start spicing it up a little bit. We did some collar cue action. We want to start generalizing it to the outdoors as well. And that's really good, right? That's fantastic, because as soon as you start getting those scents, those sounds, those smells out there, collar cues are going to be more difficult. And let's watch a couple of reps, because what I can see here, it's not as super flowy, right? You see that? It's a little more jerky. And it's not as flowy as it was when we were in the chair doing the collar cue games. And that's because we've added this distraction. Okay? So start proofing that as well. If your dog can do this with the door wide open and he's good, start proofing your collar cues. Again, adding that pressure, not really paying attention, and we're starting to proof it around other distractions as well. Okay? All right. So any questions? Questions, comments, feedback? So tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit more about generalization for collar cues. And you know what? I don't think we've had any submissions for people doing collar cue and no pulling games. So I would love to see all of your videos. 30 to 60-second video would be fantastic. I would love to see you guys practicing this, because in another 2 months from now, January, February, March, April, May, June. In June, we are going to be having another workshop. So I would love for you guys, even if you're not perfect, especially if you're not perfect and brand new to this, because in 2 months from now, for the next workshop, you're going to be so far ahead from where you are now. And when you take that moment to document where you are now, you can then, this is really fun, you can then compare it to where you are in June. And that is a testament in and of itself of putting in the work, right? And only you can do that, okay? Kira says, this gives me some ideas to work on with Apollo. Awesome. That's fantastic. Good to hear. Yeah, because like I said, Reaver heals fantastically on a collar. And there's no reason to use a head halter as a way to walk your dog. I do use head collars as a preventative tool to prevent sniffing, to prevent undesired behaviors from happening during a walk. But I don't walk my dogs on a head halter, right? It can cause spinal issues depending on, a lot of different factors. But he knows how to naturally and loosely follow by my side. And this is where it all starts, which is super exciting. Okay, all you got to do is put in a little bit of elbow grease. And again, in your workbook, you have a much more detailed plan here about the no pulling game. And that's it, guys. Go train your dog. Show us in the comments in the group. We would love to see where you guys are at. And we will see you in the future. So do you have any questions? Any questions at all? Oh, some other good ideas for objects to use. If there's a patch of grass that your dog likes to sniff, cut some of that grass off. bring it in your house, tie it up with a string, use that as a distraction for your dog not to pull towards. Add in one of those distractions at a time. Break it down easy so that it makes it easy for you to train your dog. One criteria change at a time means that we will have successful dogs and a successful team, and that's all we can ask for. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. I will see you tonight at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to be doing our review session. So when you practice these behaviors today, whatever behaviors you've been practicing during the week, during the workshop, if you need some help, then that's what that session is for. So there will be an email sent to each and every one of you guys who have registered for the workshop, and just click on that link. Join me at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time, and it's your private one-on-one Zoom session with me to go over anything that you might have questions about during the workshop. And I guess I'll see you guys there. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great one. Bye.